guys, Kevin, another movie for you guys. Continuing my Own It's Never Fucking Seen It movie reviews. This series would be for Captain Phillips, and that was originally the plan, but I had to review this movie actually for my art of film class, where you actually do supplemental film presentations for genres throughout the entire year. And this is a film that I owned, and I figured, all right, I can find a way to work this into this series, but also do it for, school and things like that. And I figured that I would review it, and that, of course, is the 1973 noir crime thriller film, The French Connection. Now, like I said, this is a movie that, one, I did mean to review last year for Classic Movies. It was another film I just didn't get to for some reason. I started and I did not have the motivation to watch it. I don't know if I just wasn't in the right state of mind, but for whatever reason, I did not feel like watching it. But as the time went closer, we each had to pick a noir film for, like I said, my class, and I picked this film because, hey, I knew I had it, and I also knew I was doing the series, so I tried to rework them into one another, and let me just say, that was definitely worth, it was definitely worth sparing Captain Phillips, because The French Connection is one of the best crime thrillers I've ever seen. I loved pretty much everything about this movie. This movie is pretty close to perfect. There's really only a few things that really do hold it back from being called perfect, but it very much is close to that. But let's get to the plot of The French Connection, because the plot of this movie, it is relatively simple, but the movie is anything but simple. Basically, it is actually based on a true story, believe it or not, which I didn't know, but we focus on Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider's characters. They are both detectives who, they are, very, very well done detectives who are in fact, in the, they're in the narcotics business and things like that. They're investigating the narcotics business, and they're going after, specifically, this very wealthy French criminal who actually runs the largest heroin smuggling syndicate in the world, named Elaine Charner, and very quickly they start to realize that this case is going to be a lot harder than they think they are, as Charner goes to pretty lengthy measures to try to get away from them, and that's really all I'm going to say, because I don't want to say anything else really about this movie. But let's just get into this film, starting off with the cast. And when it comes down to a film like this, you really need a great cast to sell it. One, because it is based on a true story, but also because of what this requires out of an actor. And damn, was Gene Hackman willing to go there. I mean, his character Popeye in this movie is fantastic. What's great about Popeye is that he is such a flawed character. He is not the perfect policeman. He has killed quite a few people. In fact, there's one cop who holds very much a lot of disdain for him because of it. Because of the fact that he has killed a lot of people, and he does have to deal with that burden on his hands. And so because of that, he's not the most respectable cop in the field. But he does have to go to some crazy measures in this movie, and his determination is enough of a reason to root for him. I mean, he is so determined to catch Charner, no matter what it takes, really. I mean, if it takes running through a street, he will do it. If it takes having to, chase him for about 5 to 6 minutes, he will do that. If it involves him even getting himself killed, he would probably do that. Just the lengths that Popeye really goes in this film are extraordinary. I really did love what Gene Hackman had to do here. You can tell that he is quite terrified of what this case really does hold, especially as things start to go on. He starts to realize how messy of a case this really is, but he really did do an excellent job here. I really did love his performance, and it's no secret why he won. I mean, there definitely was a very worthy award for him to win. He did actually win the Oscar for this film, and it was definitely a very deserving win. Just between his determination and what he had to do here is pretty insane, and it definitely requires a lot of an actor, and luckily Gene Hackman was definitely up to the task. This is by far one of his best performances, and definitely is one of the best things about this movie. He was absolutely fantastic. However, the one character we have to talk about definitely is Fernando Rey as Elaine Charner. Holy shit, this character. I mean, this is the type of character that throughout the film, he is, definitely very diabolical, and he definitely is very powerful. But as the film goes on, you realize he's a lot more powerful than you think, and they do a really good job with fleshing out his character, really showing how involved he is in this business, but he is pretty much throughout the entire film on top of things. He is very much winning, and I mean, it's incredible how much he is on top of things, and what he's willing to do to get away from all these cops is crazy. And every time, they can't seem to catch him because he just seems to be that unbeatable, and he is very good at what he does. And that's something I really did love about this villain, is that he is very, very powerful, and he's also very experienced. You get the sense he's probably been running away and, having cops come after him for a very long time. Remember, he is the most wanted and basically one of the most powerful man, the largest heroin smuggling syndicate in the entire world. And obviously, he has a lot of mercenaries that come with that, and I really did love his character here. He's very diabolical. He does a lot of terrible things, but you really do love to hate him because of how good Fernando Rey really is this character. He really did a fantastic job here, and I really think, just like Gene Hackman, he definitely is one of the best parts of this movie. Just seeing their standoffs in general, how close Gene Hackman really gets him, I think is just incredibly well done, and Fernando Rey, again, really did do an incredible job here. And then the other character to really talk about is Roy Scheider as Detective Buddy Cloudy Russo, who is in fact Popeye's partner throughout this film. And I didn't think he was as great as a character as Popeye, mainly because I just didn't find his character as interesting. But there definitely is a really good contrast between these two. While Popeye, like I said, goes to extreme, sometimes even very violent measures to catch a criminal, Cloudy is the more logical one. He's very objective. He really tries to figure out, what to do with the proper checkpoints and things like that. And I really did like the contrast between him and Popeye's character. This, in my opinion, is definitely a really good performance from Roy Scheider. It's not my favorite performance from him, obviously. I think Jaws is still, Jaws and all that jazz are still his best performances, but he still did a really great job here. I really did love what he had to do. Even though I thought his character wasn't the most interesting, I thought he still provided enough for me to, for him to be a memorable character. He wasn't completely wasted or anything like that. And then the rest of the characters throughout this film, everyone who's working for Charner and things like that, were just all very well handled. I thought they all were very powerful in their own way. You could really see how dedicated they were to what they were doing, and really just how into this business they really are, and how set they are on trying to protect Charner. And I really did love that with these characters. Really, everyone did a phenomenal job here. I don't really think there was any actor that did a bad job, and that really does help the film as a whole. However, for me, the best element in this movie is actually not the casting. I think the casting is still great. Gene Hackman, Fernando Rey, phenomenal in this movie. However, I don't think this movie would be nearly as good if it wasn't for William Friedkin, because holy shit, the way that he directs this movie is pretty close to perfection. I mean, I really did love his directing throughout this thing. This film is insane. It really is. If I haven't gotten into it yet, this film is very insane, but it's also extremely riveting. And again, what's great about this case is that it does go into some very crazy places, but it stays in this realistic way. Like, you can understand that this did happen. And that's something I didn't know going in this movie, that this actually is based on a true story. And a lot of what we saw here probably did happen the way it played out on screen. It's incredible to think about, but you can understand why it would work out this way. I mean, remember, this is the most wanted, a heroin, this is the most wanted heroin syndicate in the entire world. And obviously, because of that, these guys are extremely on top of things. And what's great about this movie is that the cops aren't exactly on top of things. In fact, it is very messy for them. A lot of times they're going back and forth. They have to redo a lot of their evidence. They think they have something solid, and then something comes to show them that that's not the case. Whether it be something that Charner does to distract them, or something that one of his buddies that he works with, like, for example, something that Boca does to try to, get them away and focus on other large, try to, kill them or something like that. There's a sniper in the film. I mean, there's so many things that these drug smugglers try to do to get away from the cops, and it is extremely well handled. The screenplay here was just so well done. I really do love the way that the film does really take its time, because it really does. I mean, yes, a lot of this film is very, very riveting, as I said, but there are some really good character moments in there. Like I said, the film really does take the time to develop Popeye as a character, show why he's not the most respectable man in the world, and why there are definitely a lot of police that aren't exactly, thrilled that they're working with him because of things he has done in the past. And he does have a past that doesn't exactly haunt him because he understands why he did what he needed to do, but he definitely is quite regretful about a lot of things, and that's something I thought was definitely very well handled. And again, the contrast between him and Cloudy I thought was also really great. The way that Cloudy was like the more rational one, I thought that was definitely very well handled. But also just the chase scenes in this movie are among the best I've ever seen. I mean, there are three insane chase scenes here. One involving a street, one involving a car. The best one in this movie has to do with involving this train, because not Cloudy, actually Popeye, he is chasing Charner throughout the film, and you think that he is actually finally going to catch Charner, but Charner actually boards a train while he is in the midst of chasing him. And again, just the lengths that Popeye went, and the lengths that Hackman rather went for that scene. Again, I'm pretty sure it was a stunt double, but it very much did not seem that way. It seemed like Hackman did kind of do his own stunt there, and I thought it was extremely well done. That chase scene is just so riveting, and there's just so many incredible parts to it. And throughout most of this film, I was on the edge of my seat, because you really don't know how this case is going to play out. Remember, you have a very messy investigation here. There are a lot of parts to it, and there are a lot of people involved in this that they really did not suspect, and they know very well going into it that it is going to be a very messy case, and that's something that becomes more inevitable than ever. Again, as the movie goes on further and further, you realize how, how well trained these, smugglers really are and what they're really doing. And I thought that, again, was very well handled here. The cinematography is fantastic. The film, I believe, was actually shot in France, and it really does add to the overall story because there are a lot of areas in France that they go through. They go through a lot of areas here in this movie, and there's a lot covered, and it's definitely very well handled. Showing Americans in this French world not really knowing how France really works, while meanwhile you have all these smugglers who do. That's something else that's very interesting about this movie, is that you have these characters here who are a lot of times very much on top of things, but they're not in this world because they're not exactly used to it, and that's something I thought was definitely really well handled. I really did love a lot of the, a lot of the vulnerability that these characters had, and I thought that really did overall add to the story. Like I said, the scenes are extremely riveting that they're in. There are a lot of chase scenes throughout this film. There's a lot of this film that doesn't contain a lot of dialogue. There is dialogue throughout this film, don't get me wrong, but there are definitely a very, there definitely is kind of like 50-50. Like, there's some scenes involve talking, and some scenes don't. And the scenes that don't involve talking, in fact, are my favorite scenes in the movie. I think that they were just extremely well handled. I think that they were just extremely riveting, and it's something where you really are on the edge of your seat. You don't really know who's going to win, and that's something I really did love, is that you don't know how this is really going to play out. Even though it is based on a true story, it's one of those cases that was not familiar to audiences in the 70s. Even if you look up these names now, you can't really get a lot of information. I looked at the name Elaine Charnier, and all that came up was information about this film, which is just very interesting how that was done. That's because it's based actually on this nonfiction biography, and that's kind of all we know about these characters. I thought was definitely very interesting. I don't know how accurate this film really was. I would assume that it was accurate, because it definitely did seem like this is the way things would have played out, especially because of how realistic things end up in the ending of this film. Particularly, I thought was extremely well done. But also the score here, I absolutely love Don Ellis' score. It was so riveting, and they only really use it when they need to. It's not used all the time throughout this movie. There are some scenes where their chase is completely silent. It's really not till things get really, really thrilling, and we really do get to that dramatic point that the score is used. And that's something that I think a lot of films of this kind do a little too much. They overuse their score. This film really does not do that. It uses it when it needs to, and I think that was something that really did overall add to the film. And then the editing, the way the film is constructed, really did fly by for me. I could not believe how fast this film was really going. Like I said, I was really into it throughout the entire time, and that's something that I really did love about The French Connection overall. Overall, guys, The French Connection is pretty damn close to perfect. I really did love this film. If it hadn't been for the way a few characters were just done, and I think they could have fleshed out some of the characters just a bit more, and also a few things in the first act. It did take me a while to get into this movie, I definitely will say. Like, the first scene is extremely well done, but everything before that, it did take me a little bit while. It wasn't really till a nightclub scene that I really did start to get into this thing. But overall, I definitely really did love The French Connection. I do think it's one of the best noir films of all time, and I'm definitely going to give The French Connection a 4.75 out of 5, or an A. So over, guys, movie The French Connection. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall. Again, I apologize for not following the guidelines of my own review series. I know that I said that I would do, you know, the randomizer and things like that, but I already picked Captain Phillips, and that will definitely be my next one. I'll try to get that up sometime over the weekend, don't you worry, and then I will be on track throughout next week and things like that. But that's my review. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall. Loved your thoughts in it, and we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for the season finale of Riverdale, which I am definitely very excited for, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.